My name is Bruno Herrmann from LT Innovate, and today I have the pleasure to talk to Esther Curiel from Zoetis. Hello, Esther. How are you?
Hi, Bruno. Very good.
Great. Thanks a lot for your time. I know you are very busy, so it's much appreciated to have you on the call and on the session today. Of course, we are going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about transformation in language management and also value creation. But before talking about these very hot topics, I just wanted to ask you if you could say a few words about you for just a few people on this planet who don't know you yet.
Yes, of course. Thanks very much, Bruno. So my background is in project and program management. At the time when you and me met, Bruno, many years ago now,
Yeah.
I was on the language service provider side. That's where my career started, and I was managing third-party quality management programs on behalf of our clients. And at that time, I think why we met really was the question of what value are we really bringing with this? Is quality really, as we define it, is that the final goal? Is there more we could be doing? So that's how you and me started talking.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, what brought me as well to the corporate side, where I felt I could have perhaps more control, more visibility, and I suppose the end-to-end chain, you can't really see it very well from the LSP side. So that brought me to a HR tech company where I built a content effectiveness team as part of a larger localization team. Very inspired, I have to say, by our conversations. And then about 4 years ago, I joined Zoetis, where I had the opportunity to build globalization for the diagnostics business unit. So that's where I am now. I might say a couple of words about the team that might be relevant as well.
Yeah, of course.
The team is, we're 4 individuals. The team, as I say, is less than 4 years old. And we kind of divide our time between more traditional localization, if you like, kind of what we typically call localization production, infrastructure, building our infrastructure. And by this, I mean not only the technology, but also the language data, the people skills, both internally for our own team and our partners. What you would call language intelligence, really. So it's building that block of language intelligence. And then the final pillar and area of focus is what we call globalization enablement, but really this is, we could switch this with value creation. That's what this is about. And for me, it's like, as I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking of our journey over the last 3.5 years or so, where we initially were focusing very, very heavily on that first pillar, the production side of things. This is where me and the team were spending most of our time. We moved on then to spending more and more time on the ecosystem, the infrastructure piece. And now we're seeing more and more focus on the final enablement value creation pillar, which is very exciting for me, especially for a team that hasn't been here all that long.
That sounds really exciting. And I'm glad you mentioned your background as coming from the supplier side and moving to the corporate side. First of all, personally, because I made the same move many years ago in the 1990s. I left the supplier side to go to the enterprise side or corporate side. So maybe the first topic for our discussion today is transformation. I know everybody's using that now, but transformation, of course, is a generic word to say that things are changing. But I wanted to get your view, your personal view or your team view on the impact of automation on multilingual content and product management. And of course, when I say the impact of automation, I mean also obviously the impact of AI, and maybe potentially if you want to shed some light on what is challenging for you these days and probably in the near future about changing and challenging the combination of the people, the processes and the ecosystem that you have to live in and that you have to deliver in?
Um, uh, Transformation. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, God, transformation is becoming business as usual. This is the new,
Yeah.
the pace of change is accelerating across all walks of life. For us, automation has enabled us to leave that bucket of just production, being just on the here and now, delivering what needs to be delivered to keep the business moving. And it's allowed us to look farther and to become more relevant. And this is exactly, you're asking about challenges. This is the big challenge now, relevance. Like,
Yeah.
are we, our skills, our teams, are we still relevant? Will we still be relevant in 5 years, in 10 years? So that's what we need to build now. And automation is helping us do that. It's freeing up the time that we were spending before on more manual processes, etc. It's freeing us up for that. It comes as well, it's forcing us to become better at curating knowledge, data management, language data management. This is an area that we're spending a lot of effort, upskilling ourselves and building that type of infrastructure. So what that's allowing as well, it's apart from moving on, from that more earlier stage where you're focused on production, you're in your little corner, you're not really like you are contributing, of course, to the company's goals, but you're not seen to be contributing. This helps you get closer, align more with the strategic goals. So, and like AI in particular, what I feel is that it's allowing us to do things that we couldn't do before. So that's the beauty of it. The more traditional automation, I feel this is still the core. Most things you can do with the more traditional automation. Not just the technology itself, but the process automation as well, and orchestration and so on, which is I think we need to be spending more effort on as well. But yeah, AI, for instance, as an enabler for two-way communication with customers, which is something we've always wanted to do. And like, I remember when digital marketing started being a thing, it was all about, hey, this is the social media marketing and so on. This is a two-way channel. That's exactly what we can enable much better now with AI. It's instant two-way communication with high accuracy as well.
You set the stage of automation when you describe what you are doing and what you will probably be doing in the near future. And you mentioned something very relevant, to use your term, which is actually that AI or automation in general is enabling us, when I say us humans in general, to do more rather than do less. Because I think that there is still today, there is some level of fear or concern that AI is going to kill us professionally, that it's going to kill our job. But actually, as you said, it enables many of us to do things that we couldn't do before, things that we had no time for before, or things that we could not do because of the means that we had, technology or processes. So I'm really glad you mentioned this aspect of automation, which is augmentation. I call it augmentation. And you mentioned something, I need to ask you this, because you mentioned knowledge and language data. I'll circle back on language data in a minute, but first, knowledge management. Would you say that in your company or in your team, knowledge management is one of the major outcome of automation, or is knowledge management just one of the directions that you take?
It's also closely interlinked, without the knowledge management, like in particular the AI machine translation, it's not going to be accurate enough. It's not going to give us the outcomes that we are seeking. So it becomes really, it was important before, it was always important, but now it's paramount. This is the thing that is going to differentiate. Let's talk about relevance again, like with generative AI, any team now, anyone within the company has the ability to get content localized, meet their language needs autonomously. without us. So the difference that we bring is that we can bring the quality aspect into it, and especially for us, regulated industry, this is very, very important, accuracy. So that's the differentiator, we're bringing, but you need the language data very carefully curated as well, because it can, if not managed properly, it can introduce further errors. So for us, this is now a key pillar. Like we have a person dedicated to it, but it's also kind of a team effort. And then, of course, we are because it's knowledge. It's not just language data itself. What we're trying to do is aggregate the knowledge that exists within the company. So we have, of course, many subject matter experts. It's really capturing that knowledge that they have in their heads and putting it in a manner in which the machines are going to be able to read it. And of course, it's going to help the humans as well. So that's for us, it's key. And it's something that we talk a lot about internally. Because for us, it's very important that we get that collaboration, that buy-in, the understanding of why this is important. And people have to give their time as well to help us ensure that this is high quality, that the data is high quality.
You just touched on something else, which is very interesting and important, which is that knowledge is one of the ways to transform content into something that is actionable for your team. Because, of course, every company in the world has content. It can be marketing, it can be legal. And of course, in your industry and in the life science industry in general, knowledge is super important because, as you said, that's the sort of the foundation of the business in life sciences. It's actually the knowledge that you leverage to produce drugs or to create medical devices, etc. But there is something I would like to hear you about, which is the fact that, of course, your company, just like the whole life science industry, is a regulated industry. So that makes a difference versus non-regulated industries. Can you say a few words about the challenges that are specific to being in a regulated industry?
So because there's regulation, there's also a lot more governance, which can make things slower in terms of, for experimentation, for bringing on new technology, even trialing new technology. So I see this as a mixed, it's a blessing in disguise, I feel, because it can make things slower from that point of view. It can curtail your freedom, perhaps, to test more things. But at the same time, it's forcing you from a very early stage to really be very clear on what's the value that this is going to bring, how is it going to work in quite a lot of detail. So by the time you're actually able to deploy it, you already know it's going to be valuable. The chance of success is much higher already from the get-go. So, on the one hand, it slows you down. On the other hand, you're probably going to move faster later on, So I don't mind it, I have to say. On the other hand, we have this feeling that regulation makes things slow. I think it makes them faster in a way.
Yeah.
Regulation is slow, but it means everything in between the regulatory milestones needs to go faster. So what that means, I suppose, is that everyone understands the importance of getting things right from the get-go. Everyone, it's much easier, I feel, to get the buy-in from those SMEs, those stakeholders that you want to persuade, that you want to influence, to try your way of doing things, try your technology, or collaborate in building your knowledge, your data, etc. So that's a positive thing as well. It's a negative and a positive, I suppose.
Absolutely. And there is something else. You just mentioned it, but maybe you can confirm it. That of course, when you are subject to regulation, some people I know would think that, oh yeah, regulation, it means that you have more time, that you are in a better framework, that there is less pressure. And I keep saying to these people, that's exactly the opposite. Regulation puts more pressure on you in terms of speed, in terms of effectiveness, Well, there is a famous example in the pharmaceutical industry, which is the EU CTR directive for the European Union. When the EU CTR was approved, it meant that some documentation had to be produced faster than before.
Yeah.
So regulation is not always to make things more so-called more comfortable, but it's also to put more pressure on teams to say,
Absolutely.
well, if you want to be compliant, you need to produce, for instance, some documentation faster. Instead of 5 days, you will get only 3 days. And so before talking about value creation, I remember last year when you attended the Language Intelligence Conference in Vienna, when we talked to a number of people in the audience coming from suppliers or companies, businesses, but only dealing with translation or localization. A number of people said to me, oh yeah, you know what, we are currently a localization team, but we would like to be more than that. We would like to be a language management team. So for you, since you are sort of covering more than just translation, is there any sort of challenge or any recommendation you would highlight for these people to move beyond translation localization?
Yeah, and I think we saw some examples as well at the conference of language service providers that were already engaged in bringing value beyond the traditional. I remember there was a presentation about, I think it was insurance claims using AI. Like that was pretty impactful, I felt. We're trying to build something with our vendors as well, where they can play a very strong part beyond, again, just the translation. So in the knowledge building, they can play a big part in there. My recommendation would be absolutely to start asking those questions, of their counterparts. I think we need a change of mindset on both sides, as we on the corporate side again engage more in this value creation that we've never been great at, verbalizing it and kind of communicating it to the rest of the enterprise, the type of value we can bring. And as we start engaging in those things that weren't possible before, this two-way communication, etc., the role of the language service providers to help us succeed with that, the amount of language knowledge you need, converting knowledge and expectations into something actually usable by the systems. And then, like in our case, for instance, we do not have in-house linguists. We rely a lot on our language partners to extract insights, to understand what is needed, to communicate as well with our markets. So there's a lot of space, I think. We're becoming a lot more creative as well in the things that can be done. Like enterprises are starting to look at, self-help for users, chatbot style.
Yeah.
And the language portion in there is huge. How do we enable that to be successful when we know that AI has been trained mostly in English, on English content? So absolutely, there's out of space, and it's about together collaboratively finding out how we can help each other. Because in our case, for instance, we couldn't be successful without our language partners.
You are definitely right to point out that it has to be collaborative, because it's not just about aligning processes, it's about aligning mindsets as well. You said it. And I also noticed that you are using partners and not vendors, which is great, because partners, when you say, I work with a partner, it means that this person or this company is much more embedded or integrated in your processes, rather than vendors. Vendors are typically transactional vendors.
Yeah, and it takes effort and commitment on both parts to build that up, and it's not overnight either.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's probably the core challenge, is actually to find this alignment between on one side, let's say the client, and on the other side the partners. That's what you just said is a great transition to the other topic, which is value creation. I'm sure that you and I today on this in this session, we wouldn't be talking if we were not both creating value, because probably we would not have a job. So if you had to define or describe simply to someone who doesn't know what you do, or who doesn't know your company, who doesn't know your team, what would you say to cover the value that you are creating? Because as you know, value means different things to different people.
When I talk about our team, I talk about how we play a part in bringing growth and bringing improved user experiences. And we do that, of course, by removing language barriers. So that's the value that we bring to the company. And then, of course, we look at, okay, how do we align with the strategic priorities of the company? And pretty much everywhere I've been is looking at, growth, demand generation, that kind of thing. So we can align easily to that. We're unlocking growth in markets where we hadn't perhaps localized before. It's important to look at as well at which markets do need that. In our industry, there is it's B2B, so you have to look at the differences between English proficiency and so on. But basically, how do you align to the business goals of growth? And that's what we're going to try and measure in some manner as well. And how do we enable the critical internal functions that play a pivotal role in that? So that's we can align very easily to that, because those are very often, and I've seen this in several, I see this very often on the corporate side, that those internal functions in international markets are a bit neglected in terms of the content that is given to them to enable them to perform to the best of their ability and as quickly as to enable them as fast as possible, so they can start those conversations with customers sooner and more effectively. So those are areas where we focus a lot on.
But you mentioned something very interesting too here, because you said that you also, of course, you create value with your team when it's about breaking those language barriers, but you also empower other functions to create value.
Yes.
Which is typically, as you said, specifically in multinational companies, and you are in a multinational company, you can or you should create value on your own, but you should also contribute to the value that other people create. And since we talk about value creation, of course, we have to talk about value measurement, because otherwise you cannot really show the value that you are creating or that you are contributing to create. So talking about value capture and value measurement, we touched on that a little bit in the previous topic about automation, but we keep saying that we have to move from outputs to outcomes, which is a big difference. Output is very production oriented. Outcome is much more effectiveness and value oriented. So I assume that you today, but it's just an assumption, that you are still, that you have to deliver, you have to show typically what is called vanity metrics, like, the number of languages that you deal with, maybe the millions of words, because word is still the currency in the language industry. So not just how, but when do you need to combine those vanity metrics or production metrics with, I would say, commercial metrics and experiential metrics? So, for instance, to say my team is managing a number of languages, but of course, it's not just a matter of volume, it's a matter of experience for stakeholders first, and then, of course, external customers. How do you manage this very challenging balance between, different types of metrics?
Yeah, the production-related metrics, vanity metrics, we're mostly looking at those internally ourselves, because I share sometimes, in terms of, I shared more initially, when it was I need to make a case for I need to grow the team. Our volumes are increasing. We need to be able to respond to that. I don't share those so much anymore. I still use them myself. I'm sharing more metrics on through our technology and our infrastructure. We enable some teams to self-serve. So this is a relatively vanity metric, but moving on to the next level, I suppose. So the utilization of these platforms, and the number of teams that we're reaching with these, I am looking at those and sharing those. So that shows, the impact that we can have beyond the day-to-day translation, managing projects, and so on. I share metrics as well in terms of, we do have one of our pillars of our globalization strategy is the expansion. And we have a strategy with this is where we're expanding when. So I show metrics in terms of, hey, so many of these now reach. This is the percentage towards the goal that we've set ourselves. So this is a result of a collaboration with the commercial teams to figure out where it makes sense to expand with a native language experience. So it's that kind of metrics. The enablement of apart from the self-service, the enablement of these critical client-facing internal functions. What's the coverage of the training content, etc., that we're now being able to give them with high efficiency, and so how this has enabled them to perform their job better. I can show metrics in terms of coverage of content, etc., but I find that sometimes the qualitative metrics are almost slash storytelling. That can sometimes be even more powerful when you tell the story of how these teams weren't able to do such and such, or how they had a cognitive barrier. That can be quite powerful as well. Same thing goes for, we are very lucky that my team has, we go on customer visits. So you can see firsthand in countries, how the lack of a very cohesive, very, very high quality language experience, you can see how this affects them. And you can bring that data back. So it's not metrics, it's qualitative data, but it is very impactful. So we're using that as well as part of our storytelling mixed in with the metrics.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, that is very close. I mean, those visits that you just mentioned are very close to what I call experiential metrics.
Yeah.
What is the real experience, not the assumed experience, not the expected experience, but the real one. What people are truly feeling. Well, of course, feeling and doing. I think it's really it's a great practice that you have there. It's probably an advice that you may give to other people and other companies. Go and visit, go and talk to your customers.
Yeah. I feel, Bruno, that more and more we're becoming product managers, because we start having we're not just providing services anymore, we're actually providing products and solutions. So kind of taking some of those practices, of user research, etc. I feel that's this is one of the areas where we need to go more. Our skills need to be broadened in so many areas, data literacy, of course, we need to be savvy in all of these new technologies, etc. A lot of personal skills, because more and more, how do you find out where the value is by having these conversations, but then you need to influence people to actually want to partner with you to achieve those goals. And more, we're not isolated. We're part of a larger ecosystem within the company. We're collaborating more and more with other functions, and I think this is a trend for all of us in the industry, which I love. I enjoy it. I thrive in collaboration. I don't like silos, so this is perfect for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the essence of moving from as you said before, from suppliers to customers, or moving from translation localization to language management, is about focusing on outcomes rather than output. Because as long as you are focused on outputs only, you're not going to be able to see the real value that you create, because an output is just, as the name sees for itself, it's just something that you are giving out, but you don't see how what it becomes when people consume what you have created. So that's why I think some people want to make that move to being a content manager or product manager, because you can really see the value that you create. It's no longer just about output. It's not just about the number of products that you are managing. It's about how those products are used by your customers. So again, you see the contrast between the output and the outcome. So
yeah. The lines are getting blurrier, right? Between all these functions, we're all becoming part of the same thing.
Anything you would like to say as a final word for today?
I think the big learning for me last year, you mentioned the DLT Innovate conference last November. I came back, like that concept of language intelligence, there's a lot of power to it, to talk about what we do and our value internally within our corporation. So I'm starting to use it a little bit, and I am still calling that pocket, infrastructure. But I'm starting to think about changing it, because I think it's very powerful when talking to AI teams, data science teams. But also, I feel it brings it brings us into the right conversations as well. When there are initiatives that have a multilingual component, but no one is thinking about the multilingual component, but just that, it's helping us articulate our value. So I'm thankful to you, Philippe, the LT Innovate team, for kind of making us reflect on that. It's obvious once you hear it, but I'm finding it very useful for internal communications.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for mentioning that, because that's exactly what we want to do. When you take any supply chain of content, you will see that language expertise is needed everywhere.
I think I left the conference thinking we are becoming architects of international experiences. That's
Well, Esther, I cannot thank you enough. Once again, thank 1 million, 2 million for this chat. Always a pleasure to hear about what you are doing, your team is doing.
Thanks, Bruno. Always a pleasure.